Hi, welcome to another installment of our 3-Minute Journal Club, brought to you by the Workwell Foundation research team. Title of this paper is Diminished Cardiopulmonary Capacity During Post-Exertional Malaise. This was published in the Journal of Chronic Fatigue Syndrome in 2007. Myself, Chris Snell, and Stacy Stevens are co-authors on this paper. This was the first paper to ever do what was referred to as a serial CPET. And the idea of a serial CPET were two exercise tests separated by 24 hours. Up until this point, we had done cardiopulmonary exercise testing on one occasion and then allowed the subject to completely recover from that bout of exercise before anything else was done in the patient. Here, the first exercise test, as we know, causes post-exertional malaise or post-exertional symptom exacerbation. When the subject then comes back 24 hours later, you're doing a cardiopulmonary exercise test in a post-exertional state. We thought this an ideal way to assess differences from a patient that's not experiencing PEM to a patient that is experiencing post-exertional symptom exacerbation. In this original study, we only had 6 CFS patients. Those 6 CFS patients were able to do the test-retest strategy, and we found 6 control subjects that we age-matched, body weight, and activity. In other words, the amount of activity on a typical day that those ME/CFS patients did, we matched them with a control subject. And again, that had similar body weight. The subjects in this study were all women that helped with some of the heterogeneity within the responses. The results are shown here. The results for test 1 and test 2 in CFS and controls. This is the results for test 1. This is the results for test 2. You can see peak oxygen consumption was not different during the first exercise test. The 6 women that had CFS versus the 6 women that were age, body weight, and activity matched were not different. This group of studies we calculated ventilatory anaerobic threshold, or just anaerobic threshold. This is the VO2 at that transition from primarily aerobic metabolism to starting to rely more and more on anaerobic metabolism. And again, you see those values between CFS and controls were not different. On test 2, during post-exertional malaise in the women that had CFS, you see a dramatic reduction in their cardiopulmonary performance on the exercise test. Not only was it less than the controls, it was less to themselves than the day before. Their cardiopulmonary capacity diminished, even though criteria for maximal effort on the second exercise test was the same as the first. Another way to demonstrate this, rather than just looking at test 1 and test 2, is comparing the control subjects here to the CFS patients. And what you can see is we added here the amount of variability between test 1 and test 2. And similar to many other studies that have been done in healthy and other pathologic conditions, you see very little variability in exercise testing performance from one day to the next in people that don't have ME/CFS. In this series of studies, even there's only 6 patients, you can see a dramatic reduction in peak VO2 and in VO2 at the anaerobic threshold, between 22 and 27% reduction from day 1 to day 2. That's the effect that post-exertional malaise has on the ability to perform work in the post-exertional state. The conclusions from this study showed that even with similar effort, highlighted in the blue here, respiratory exchange ratio or respiratory quotient was used as the criteria for effort. There was no difference in effort between test 1 and test 2. There was a significant reduction in their cardio and pulmonary responses during exercise testing, and again, 22 to 27% reduction. This study, even though it only had 6 subjects in the CFS and the control groups, was the first to use the serial CPET and the first to demonstrate that the effect of post-exertional malaise could be elucidated by serial CPET, and that post-exertional malaise included compromised heart rate, systolic blood pressure, and VO2 responses during post-exertional malaise. And again, hopefully you'll stay tuned for more videos from the Workwell team.